Hey, this is Anthony Ha with TechCrunch. I'm here with Roman Karachinsky from News360, and they just launched a new Android app, which we're going to look at in a second. But actually, especially for those of you who aren't familiar with News360, maybe we'll just do a quick demo on the iPad, which has the bigger screen and is fancier and flashier and so forth. So, Roman, maybe just actually, why don't you just tell us, like in a sentence or two, what is News360?
Sure. Well, hi, Anthony. Thanks for having me over. It's great to be here. But basically, News360 is a platform that tries to understand your interests and then analyzes everything that's going on the web and in your feeds, and basically tries to separate the noise out, keep all the signal in, all the things that you're actually interested in, and then present you with a single news feed that has all the content, both from the feeds that you regularly read and from things that you wouldn't have otherwise found, but we think should be interesting to you. And the goal is basically to give you a single feed that has everything that you need.
Cool. Well, I could ask you more questions, but actually the best thing to do is let's just see it in action.
So let me show you how it works. So this is my News360 right now. So my home feed that has basically everything that I'm interested in, all of the top stories, technology, science, something about the iPhone, some video games, and this is basically infinite, and it adapts as I use it. It learns to know me better and better. And I can scroll through this, and eventually when I find something interesting, I can interact with it. I can, say there's a story about the scientists increasing lithium sulfur battery lifetimes. And I'm actually interested in batteries, so I'll swipe here. It turns the story over like a little cube, and then I can mark it as interesting, or I can hide it, or do whatever with it. If I go in, we try to actually gather a lot of, so this story is just a single article from Phys.org, but if we go and find some political story here, let's say, or a gadget story, about the pad phone launch at the Mobile World Congress. So this was covered by a whole bunch of different tech sources. So we have the Next Web here, The Verge, Gizmodo, TechCrunch, just most likely somewhere in there as well on the top.
Why isn't it in the top?
It's right here at the top here. So we'll switch to TechCrunch.
That's all right. That's all right. Once in a while, we'll give it to somebody else.
All right. And we actually, so for TechCrunch, we actually have a thing where for sources that we work with, or for sources that have the full text of the story inside of their RSS feed, we'll actually feature your brand and try to make it a little bit kind of more unique to the user. And then basically, so and I can adjust this. So at the top, I have all of the different interests that I've specified explicitly to the app. So I'm interested in Tesla, in SpaceX, and TechCrunch is right here, App Store, Windows 8, and so on. And the app actually adds to this and learns as I read. So I can just tap Add Edit, and this brings up an interface that tries to recommend new topics for me. So if it says, okay, you probably want to read about politics, I'll add politics, tap Done, and that brings it into my home feed as well.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the gist of it.
Right, cool. So and then you've got the Android app, which I think we haven't got hooked up, but maybe you could just tell us a little bit about what's new with this app specifically.
Sure. So we've had kind of a long cycle of releasing this new kind of really cool personalization functionality to all the different apps that we have. We started with the iPad back in June. I think that's the one we talked with you.
Right.
And then the Android phones kind of wraps it up. This is the last platform that we're updating. And we've put a lot of effort into making it look good and kind of be very Android specific. So we have a widget that's kind of really awesome for keeping track of things on your home screen. When there's something interesting about Obama saying something to Congress about automatic cuts, you tap on it and it opens a story, and we have the MSNBC and the Washington Post and BBC, and you can actually decide what sort of bias you want.
Right.
Whether you want Fox News with the very super Republican, or you want MSNBC with super Democratic, and it tries to adjust. Like as soon as we know that you're interested in a specific source, we try to actually surface that to the top. But we always present the opposing view kind of right next to it.
Right. Right.
And then the app kind of performs similarly to the tablet app, except in just a smaller form factor. You have a single story that we kind of focus on, and then you can swipe. And we try to eventually, after you've used the app for a couple of weeks, every story is interesting. That's what's magical about it. That's what kind of the personalization behind the app drives.
Right, right.
We learn enough about you to really tailor it very uniquely.
So this has been kind of like a 6-9 month period of kind of rolling out these changes across all your different platforms?
Yeah, and we've actually, while we were doing it, we were also working very hard on the actual platform, on the algorithms behind it. And this was one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little bit, is how important that is. What we found is, this space is super busy. And you know about this more than anybody else probably.
I hadn't noticed,
you have to cover all of these different apps.
Right.
And but basically, it's easy to enter this space because all the content is out there. All you have to do is grab it, present it in a nice interface, and that's valuable already.
Right.
But to actually make this work, to make this sticky, and to make people like it and love it, you have to make sure that the curation and the personalization algorithms behind it are really, really good.
Okay.
And that's what we've been working on this for something like 3 years now, and that's what we've been doing first and foremost before we even focus on the interface and making it beautiful. And that really kind of makes a difference. So one of the things we did with this launch recently, when we were preparing for Android, is we did we were constantly changing the algorithm behind the scenes, but we did one specific release, and all of our algorithms are named after space vessels.
Okay.
So we had the Sputnik algorithm, which was working for quite a while now, which is kind of the first one to go in space. And then we had the Explorer 1, which is supposed to supplant Sputnik.
Okay.
And the Explorer 1 was basically, it was a reasonably small tweak in terms of making things a little bit more fresh, kind of making them a little bit more tailored to your source affinity. And it was just interesting because that was the first time we really paid a lot of attention to how it drove engagement metrics. And it made a huge difference. So we saw basically a 12% rise in readership just from a very minor change. And this is just the beginning.
Readership as in the engagement, number of people, or as in engagement per user?
No. Number of articles a user has read in a single, in a day, basically.
Right, okay.
So it rose from something like 4.2 to 5.
Okay.
And that is huge. And considering we didn't really do that much. And we've been constantly working with this and improving it without doing very rigorous testing. And now we're just switching to this platform of having a bunch of algorithms and then really testing them all at the same time on different subsections of the user base and selecting the best one and keeping it sort of an evolving genetic kind of selection of which one is going to do the best.
Right.
And the fact that it can make such a huge difference, which is such a small change, is amazing. And considering we already have on the iPad our average, I think 26% of all sessions last longer than 10 minutes for us. And we have people coming back, so weekly active users, 26% of them come back more than 7 times a week. So basically every day.
Right.
And the fact that we can improve that by 12% just by tweaking a few numbers, it's not easy, it's rather rigorous, but that's quite amazing to me. And I think that's where the future of content consumption lies, is making better algorithms.
Right. And it may be something where it's not necessarily even that obvious to the user, it's just that they just sort of unconsciously realize that the content is better, and so over time it kind of improves.
Yeah, and it's about learning, right? It's about making sure that the user sees kind of the magic of it. If he starts, on Monday, and by Friday we're doing a visibly better job at picking stories for him, then we've captured him. He's now ours. Right.
I guess that's particularly interesting to me because it feels like for a while there was sort of this, as you said, it's a very crowded space. And there were sort of all these, Flipboard being the most prominent example of companies that really maybe didn't, at least from what we understand, didn't necessarily have sort of hugely sophisticated algorithms. It was really about the UI. And I think the question for a lot of people was, does it really make a difference to users if these companies talking about their deep technology, but if it's not obvious to users, does it matter? And it sounds like what you're saying is actually, it does matter.
Yeah, I think so. And when you look at the biggest players in the space, Flipboard and Pulse, they don't really have any technology behind it, really. It's just same feeds that you consume on Facebook or in your RSS reader, just presented differently and much more usable, much more mobile friendly.
Right.
But I think that what's slowly going to change is that people are going to want much more algorithmic curation than just relying on the same people they follow or sources they're already familiar with, because the signal noise ratio keeps going down. Every year there's more and more crap in my Facebook newsfeed.
Right.
and every year there's new sources being created and coming up that I just don't have enough time to follow, even though they're putting out great content. So this is something that we're trying to solve.
Great. Well, thanks for stopping by, Roman, and showing off News360.
Well, happy to be here. Thank you.